they didn't explode in your arms.
Terrific.
2 carbon tetrachlorides, styrene, pyrene.
Were they the best for chimney fires?
They were the best for just about anything. Fireplaces, chimney fires, oil burner fires, furnaces. But it was one of the most dangerous extinguishing agents that could be used. And it was when you bought a boat, before you got your license, or the boat was inspected, you had to have one of these on board.
Those were the pyrene, the pump
type,
kinds, yeah.
Carbon tetrachloride. Well, nobody knew how dangerous this stuff was. And in the 50s, it ran at $10 a gallon. So, and you'd use it for washing down engine parts, whatever. And one day I had a bucket of it, and I'm cleaning some parts off the truck, and my pipe kept going on. Blaming the tobacco, lousy tobacco. Well, I'd back away, I'd light it up again and get it going. I'd go back over, I'd get my washing the parts in there, and the pipe would go out. I'd back up, and there's lousy tobacco, and I'm blaming it. Well, what was happening was the liquid would turn into a vapor, and I'm inhaling the vapor, which is putting my pipe out.
Oh, that's great.
Unknown to us, to any of the firefighters, no matter where in the country, this stuff was very poisonous. You could absorb it through your pores of your skin, inhaling the fumes, and you thought you were a big shot, and have an oil burner fire in the cellar, and they'd pump some of this into it, put the fire out like that, and you'd come out coughing and spitting and vomiting, and you thought, oh boy, poor fireman. Well, we don't know what the heck it did to our bodies.
Sure.
Some doctor in Yale ran a study on it, and that's when they found out that it was so dangerous, and it was pulled off the trucks right away.
When was it pulled off, do you think about? Middle 50s, early 60s maybe?
Early 60s.
Early 60s, yeah. And we still, very rare now, see some of these grenades or the glass balls that have been installed in some of the older homes.
Yep.
I haven't seen one in maybe 5 or 6 years, but the idea there was you threw the grenade into the fire, and it, I guess, ate up all the oxygen in the fire.
It would immediately change from the liquid to the gas, and it would choke the fire out. I mean, nothing flat. It was also a great thing to use when your engine got wet and stalled out. Pump that into the engine compartment around the spark plugs and the distributor, and
dry it right
out.
You talked about breathing some of this carbon tet and smoke and oil burners. How about the breathing apparatus? Right now we enjoy these self-contained breathing apparatus, or MSAs. They're about $2,000 a piece. They're a little bulky, a little heavy, but you had a tougher time when you came on with breathing apparatus.
Yeah. Most of the time you didn't use breathing apparatus because you want, macho fireman. Boy, that guy can take the smoke, he can take the heat. It's tearing your guts out. The first breathing apparatus we had was an old filter type mask, and contained a fairly large cartridge that was in a harness, and you'd strap it on, and facepiece was all attached. And it was okay as far as using it on a first floor or second floor of a building fire. It got you through it. There's different types of chemicals in this cartridge that filtered out the impurities. The only thing is that nobody knew that it wasn't good for carbon monoxide. Every time you went into a cellar fire, you had one of these on, and it wasn't doing anything for you.
Sure.
Put them on, you went to up into an attic fire. where's the carbon monoxide? It's right there with you,
That's right, yeah.
and this mask isn't doing any good.
Now, did that have the two little eyelets about the size of a $50, I guess, rather than a full face piece? They had, you almost look like a
Yeah, you look
Martian,
like,
right?
Yeah, you look like a Martian. Had the two glass eyepieces and a humongous mask. And, the canister was good for about 45 minutes to an hour of continuous use. But if you used it for 10 minutes, you throw it back in the box and went back on the truck. There was a little, some type of a timer on it. Well, did the timer work? Nobody ever knew. It might jiggle around, bounce around in the truck. To keep the moisture out of the chemicals, there was always a large piece of tape on the bottom. And quite a few guys very fast found out that you couldn't breathe through this thing unless you pulled the tape off the bottom. They'd come stumbling out and they'd, oh, this thing isn't working good.
Couldn't get any air
You
through
couldn't
it.
get through any air because of the tape on the bottom. Then the Chemox came out. And it was quite weird that how these things came about. Stratfield was a very progressive company as far as buying equipment. They had the first Chemox, and then the rest of the town got them. They had the first Scotts, and the rest of the town
Right.
got them. They had the first Resuscitator, and the rest of the town got it.
Why was that? Any idea? Who was the force up there doing that?
You really couldn't say the chief. It was the young guys, the guys that wanted to really push the department along. The budgeting to get all this stuff, the local chief, department chief, station chief, whatever, would sit down with a couple guys and, hey, what do we need? He would then send a requisition into purchasing. Purchasing would turn it over to financing. Financing would stamp it, then it'd come back, and you'd finally get what you were looking for, what you needed. As far as apparatus goes, specifications, at that time, there was nobody really knowledgeable about what should be on the fire truck, what should we have. And most of it was leading it back on, was it pamphlet 19?
It's 1901 now, but it was NFPA 19 then, that's right.
And the chief would go through that with the salesman, and then the specs would be drawn through that. And of course, the salesman writing the specs up, he's kind of looking towards his company. So
What was his name? The guy from La France, O'Shea? Dick O'Shea? Something like that.
Gee, I can't. There was an O'Shea, but there was
Before him there was one.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
can't
name
think.
escapes me also. O'Shea came after the original
Yeah.
guy we're talking about. And, yep, you're right. All
But
of,
they, in the 50s, we had two Macs. Well, no, we really had three Macs. We had the 34 down in Southport. We had a 38 or a 39 down in Southport, which was a real mongrel. And then the 44. This mongrel piece was a Mac chassis, and it had a 28 LaFrance pump and a hose body that carried maybe 800 feet of hose.
gee.
And that was it. I think it had a 60 horsepower engine in it, and it was quite embarrassing to go up a hill and have a kid pass you on a bicycle and you're going to a fire.
Incredible. Incredible. Now, obviously, you were working back in 1954, I guess it was, when they opened up the new firehouse on Reef Road, the one we use now at 140 Reef Road.
Yeah.
So you must have been part of that move, right? Closing down the old place?
Yeah, it was a little bit sad and yet a little happy at the same time because we didn't have any room at all in the old station. And the alarm room was right over the cellar, which contained the furnace. Non-fireproof anywhere, there was nothing. Always got water in the cellar when it rained hard. And of course with the newer trucks, the doorways always seem to get a little bit narrower. And it was right after we got the, what the heck year was that, 50? Either 49 or 50 La France. Closed cat, whoopee, were we getting modern.
Now these were they called them, I guess, American La France Foamite, it said on the
Yeah.
front. And they were, I'm not sure whether the Subway front or, they were 600 series, I guess they were, yeah.
The 600
We had a
series.
bunch, we wound up with a bunch of those,
at
yeah.
the same time.
Wasn't the pump panel on the opposite side?
Pump panel was on the passenger side, which meant the driver had to get out and around, run around, and if he didn't get it in gear the first time, he had to go run around the front again and jump in the cab. Well, this is the first time that we are exposed to a truck with the front wheels in back of you.
Sure.
So you
that's right.
said in front, it was, hey, this is modern times. Boy, we got top class apparatus. The only problem was getting used to steering. And you move the steering wheel just a little bit here, the wheels back there went that way. One of the shifts was pulling out and waxed the left front fender. Okay, no problem. They banged it out and polished it down and repainted it. A week later, pulling out again, it happens to be the same shift. They hit the same door jam.
Was this, by any chance, to happen to be maybe that guy who disconnected the telephone on Chief Carroll? Might be the same guy?
No.
No, this isn't, okay, just checking. Just checking. I was wondering, it might have been the same guy.
This was another one. And took part of the running board and then left the rear fender off. So Chief Carroll was hollering, put it over in the other bay. Put it in the other bay. Chief, both bays are the same width. Put it in the other bay. Okay, Chief. Get it all hammered out and polished up again, repainted. He's standing there. Now I worked with Chuck Garrison, and we would all of our crews. You'd drive 1 week, next week the other guy would drive. We're pulling out to go to a call for help for a brush fire on Hillside Road, and Chet's driving, and Tom Carroll is standing there. We pull out, and I holler at Chet, hold it, I think something fell off the truck. Well, jumped out, and something did fall off the truck. We took and ran the butt end of the roof ladder right into the door jamb. Took the trim off, the pine in back of the trim, and I think it was every other rung in the wood roof ladder, plus the 2 ladder brackets around 45-degree angles. Chief, now both doors are same width.
Same width?
But it was just that we're not used to driving with the front wheels in back of you.
So you guys were in heaven then, when you moved into the new
Oh,
place?
yeah. Glad you had plenty of open room.
How many people now? Right now, there's 5 of the fellas working downstairs. You got about 5 or 6 of us upstairs. So you got a pretty full complement of people there. How many people when you moved into
Well,
headquarters?
we were a little bit more fortunate than the guys today. We only had 2 trucks to take care of. But we had dispatcher and the 2 guys out on the floor.
That's a good point, though. Now they have 2 engines, the rescue, the hazmat truck, the trailer, all the cars, and yeah.
All the cleaning was done. Nobody griped about, well, I did the stairs yesterday. I'm not going to do it today. Stairs were done every day. The floors were mopped every day.
Now, weren't the windows done every week?
Every week the windows were done.
And twice a week, I think the downstairs ones were done, and every week all of them were done. I mean, it was a pretty heavy-duty schedule.
It was a heavy schedule. There was a certain dispatcher that was always moaning, and, where this dispatcher was yesterday. They didn't clean around here today. What he would do was take a paper match, bend it in half, and put it in the corner of the windowsill. Remember the big windows that
Sure.
you just had bricked up?
Yep.
What the guy was doing was pick it up,
Clean the window.
dust it all down,
Put the match
put it
back.
right back where in the same spot.
Correct.
All right. They don't even dust around here anymore. We knew it was being dusted.
That was good though. So you had 3 guys working in the
3 guys. Well, the
fire
dispatcher, he never left the area of the alarm room. It was too far for him to get back if the phone rang.
Now, when the phone would ring in the middle of the night, okay, he'd sleep, of course. He had that little room that's now a little television,
Yeah.
or it's a little dormitory downstairs. He'd sleep in there, and he'd have the night bell on. The bell would also ring upstairs.
Upstairs
So
in the
you
dark,
fellas, wasn't it the general practice? You'd sit up in bed?
Oh yeah, you'd sit up and wait for the clacks and the lights to go on. You'd wait and wait and wait, and well, must have been the wrong number, so lights didn't go on, so
So you go back to
so you
sleep.
went back to sleep.
But you always, every time the phone rang,
Every time
up
the
you
phone
went.
rang.
Yeah.
In fact, one night we heard a hell of a bang, like a roll of thunder, and we automatically got up, got our night hitches on, we went down, and no alarm yet. And then a couple of seconds later, the DuPont alarm was punching in, and we made some pretty good time getting there. We were already on the floor.
Now, DuPont's is on Mill Plain Road, just between the railroad and the cemetery.
Yeah.
It's Fairpreen now.
Fairpreen
Okay.
now. And they had a manufacturing of gaskets and things for carburetors and things of this sort, and also Army fatigue cloth that the uniforms were made out of. And this one process, the roll of material would go into this oven, and then it went up 3 stories and back down again 4 or 5 times, and come back out, and it's cured and dried and all set, and that would roll up and be the finished product to be shipped out. Something happened to the machine, and the guy that was standing feeding the machine reached in and hit the emergency switch for the fans that was up in the 3rd floor, equal to the 3rd floor. realizing what he did, he reached back in and turned them on, and that's when the thing blew up.
Wow.
In the process of cleaning this material, purifying it, whatever, curing it, they used gasoline. The fans were up there to draw the gasoline fumes off. And he shut them off. In just that few seconds, there was such an accumulation, it blew the tower pretty much apart. A 6-inch sprinkler riser, and the building at that area was actually bulged out about 6 inches.
Wow.
Actually, there was no fire, but there was a lot of water damage.
Now, this was early 50s, middle
Yeah,
50s?
yeah, middle 50s.
And you went out of the new firehouse?
Yeah,
Out of the new
yeah.
place? Well, I wrote down a couple of fires that I'm aware of happened. Many of them I weren't at. I'm sure you were at them all. Fairfield Lumber's had a couple of celebrated fires. One many of us realized was back probably in the 70s when they lost one of their storage places. But they had something in the middle 50s. I was in 6th grade, and so I didn't make that one, but I'm sure you did. Could you give us a little insight?
That was one of our bad days. Like I said earlier, I worked, my partner was Chet Garrison, and it was somewhere around noontime. Back doors were down. It was early spring or mid-spring, and I hollered down to Chet. I said, "Hey, look, there's smoke going up over here." So we're leaning on the back doors, looking out. We could see the column of smoke going up. Well, what do? No phone call. We don't know where it is. We don't know what it is. I'm gonna go down and put my my gear on. So just as we're putting our boots on, the call come in. Fairfield Lumber. When we pulled in down there, the main storage shed, which was probably 150 feet wide, about 300 feet long.
And this is going down Thorpe Street.
Thorpe Street.
First building you
The
come
first
to on the
building
left?
On the left as you get into the yard. Well, this thing is blazing from one end to the other.
Did you pull up with 2 guys?
We were lucky we had 3 guys. Benny Ostermecki was a volunteer. He grabbed the hydrant for us.
Wow.
What are we gonna do?
That's right.
At least pump operator, one guy to pull the hose. 4's come down, and I gave him a feed line, but that only gave us 1 more man. And the pump operator, 1 guy to pull the hose. Well, I think if the super pumper from New York was on the scene before we got there, they couldn't have done anything else. We wound up with everything from Fairfield there, plus Bridgeport, and they had a old LaFrance pump hooked up on the corner of, it was either Hurd or Blaine, and they had lines across the swamp, and the old lady come out of the house and started chewing on the pump operator. He said, "You gotta shut this thing off. It's rattling all my dishes and they're falling off the shelf." And it was, because that thing would vibrate back and forth like an old rocker arm steam engine, and it really vibrated. We finally, I don't know if we put the fire out or it burned out by itself because there was nothing left to burn. Somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
That was a 12-hour fire then?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when you were called back for something like this, and you'd stay there until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Thanks, guys. You did a good job.
Paid.
You were lucky to get a pair of dry gloves the next day.
Things have changed. I also wrote down the grass fire days of the 50s and 60s. Now, I was fortunate enough, at least I look at it as being fortunate, to participate in many of those days. You trained me very early on, in about 1964, how to drive that Mack fire truck, that 43 or 44 Mack. So I usually took that second truck out of headquarters weekends, certainly on a Good Friday. Good Friday was the greatest day of the year for me, because there'd be 150, 200 grass fires. And we did that for years. You want to give us a little, tell us what was going on?
It seems as though that Lincoln's birthday or Washington's birthday, we didn't have snow, but we sure did have a lot of dry grass. And it would be nothing to have engine 1 going down towards Southport and to a brush fire, per se, on Hull's Farm Road, and engine 4 going to Round Hill Road to a brush fire. No radios. You'd wave to the guys going by. But many times we would split the 2 paid drivers, and with the number of volunteers we had a good crew on both trucks. The worst ones that we would generally have would be down this area along the beach, Reef Road and Fairfield Beach Road, around Roland Road, and that area there.
Well, where Sherman School was.
Sherman School.
That was another, I can remember a couple that would roll right across the road.
We came out of that smelling like a rose one afternoon. Chet got sick, Chet Garrison, and I worked with Johnny Smith. And we pulled into that old dirt road where Sherman School is now. And the fire was started up around the back of the cemetery, and it was getting away from us. And I hollered to John, we got to move the truck. Well, in order to do anything with the truck, the first thing you had to do was get it out of pump gear. Well, got it out of pump gear, but couldn't get it into road gear. And couldn't get it back into pump gear. And this thing is roaring down like a freight train. Well, somehow, somebody upstairs was looking out after us. The fire went on both sides of the truck, never blistered it, and I don't think we put it out, went out when it got down to Fairfield Beach Road. That time there wasn't any houses down there. And there was a little problem with there was a hydrovac valve that assisted in braking and putting it into pump gear and taking it out of pump gear. But again, somebody was looking out after us.
Do you remember we had a grass fire down here on Reef Road between Fairfield Beach and One Rod Highway? And we had just gotten the new Dacron hose, the new 1.5 inch, because we had always had all the cotton.
Yeah.
And I think it was you, me, Bill Lee, I forgot, a bunch of us. We stretched 1.5 inches through the swamps, and it lasted about 20 seconds, and then it was a Swiss cheese. Remember that?
We had a sprinkler system in back of us.
Yep.
That Dacron hose just melted away.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, it was an experiment. Well, I'll tell you, Cap, we got a lot more to talk about, but I'm getting tired from fighting all this fire, so let's take a couple of minutes break.
Yeah, the smoke is getting kind of heavy.
The smoke's getting kind of heavy in here.
Getting to you.
All right, we'll be right back. During the break, I got Captain Elias to promise not to tell a number of things about my early days in the fire department, and I appreciate that a lot.
Oh, your early days?
Yeah, moving along.
Now that you're the chief, what would you think of a guy pulling up to a fire at 8 o'clock in the morning that was driving the truck with a tuxedo on? You don't remember that one?
He must have been, yeah.
All right, we'll go on.
Yeah, thank you.
We won't
Yeah.
dwell on that one.
Yeah, we won't talk about that one. I'll tell you, one of my first experiences, pre-volunteer days, I locked myself in the bathroom at Parkway. And after about a half an hour, my parents couldn't get the door opened, or I wouldn't open the door, so they called the fire department. And guess who responds?
Yeah, we had to go and get this young kid out of the bathroom. He locked himself in, and he was having a bad day or something. And no matter what Dad or Mom promised, he wasn't coming out. So we got him out. Gee, maybe we should have left him in there.
That had to be about 42 years ago. That was a couple of years ago, Cap.
Yeah, a few years ago.
There was a couple. Some other fires that, some other things you burnt down during your career. Country Club of Fairfield, that was about 1960 as far as I can figure.
Yeah, I can't remember the date. The only thing I can remember was an awful cold, icy night. And Aid Leahy and Mike Marion, first ones on the scene, and they started going through the front door, dragging a line with them, and they got about 3 feet into the main hallway, and they ran on the floor. They darn nearly wound up in the cellar, and they're jacking Aerial 2 around in the back to try to get it into position. The only problem they had was it wouldn't go forward because of the ice. So they back up a little bit and go forward, try to go forward again, back up a little bit. Well, by the time they wound up going back and forth, they're down in the fairway and absolutely useless. Mike Kreinick came down and picked up the Engine 6, which is the Mac at headquarters, and the Engine 4 was first due in. They laid the line from Oldfield Road and Sasko Hill Road. And then they decided, whoa, wait a minute, there's a hydrant closer. So for some unknown reason, it worked out all right at the end. They put a hose clamp on it, and they went down farther and picked up the next hydrant. In the meantime, everybody is down there, and Mike comes down with the Mac, and he sees this long line way down the street with no pump at the hydrant. So he radios down to whoever, but there was nobody down the other end. Tell him he's shutting down the hydrant to hook in, so he shuts the hydrant down, and he hooks in, starts pumping, and he pumped 4 hours into a line with a hose clamp on it.
Oh, man. Got a lot of friction loss, huh?
Couldn't figure out why he wasn't getting any fluctuation. He put it right there at 120 and it stayed there.
That's incredible. I knew that there was something to do with water supply that went down there. Well, as late as last night, I looked at some slides my father had taken of that, and that burnt the whole roof off, whole back off, and that was a TO.
Oh, yeah, that was total.
Yeah, and the important lesson, as you said, is Mike Marion and Aid going in.
Could have lost them.
Could have lost them in the basement. But they were probably two of the most experienced firefighters I had ever met, right?
No question about it. There was many times when you'd be working at a real smoky fire, and you'd have a mask on, and all of a sudden you'd feel some guy wedging his way through to get up to the nozzle and give you a hand. And there's Mike Marion right up there next to you, no mask on, and a cigar going in his mouth. They're one of the two real guys that weren't afraid to go in, and that's really the backbone of firefighting. You don't push it in from the outside, you get inside and push it out.
They were, I think that the term Mike Kranick, and we'll talk about Mike a little later, Mike Kranick used to call them iron firemen, right?
Wooden buildings and iron firemen.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was a joy. I was very fortunate to work with